Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World episode 42 with me, John Jordan. In this episode, I'm talking to Andy Colosimo, who's the driving force behind the XAYA blockchain game platform. Now, Andy can remember when you could mine Bitcoin in your own living room with your own PC. But since that time, he's moved on. He was involved in Namecoin, the first Bitcoin fork, and then used Namecoin as the starting point for Huntercoin, which was the first fully decentralized blockchain game, which is actually still running over 4 years since it launched. But in more recent years, Andy's been working on the XAYA project. Originally, it was called Chimera, but rebranded as XAYA last year. And XAYA is very different to what we see the majority of companies in the blockchain space doing. So the majority are looking at games using NFTs and having kind of true ownership. So we could argue that they are games using the blockchain. XAYA is much more a kind of pure vision. We could call it maybe a maximalist vision of blockchain gaming, where the blockchain and the game are fully integrated. Everything that happens in the game logic, the metagame, all the item ownership, all happens on the blockchain. And that's what XAYA does. So Andy has a very different view on where he wants blockchain gaming to go, which I think is quite fascinating and quite interesting to compare with lots of the other interviews that we've done. So really fascinating. Hope you enjoy the interview. Obviously, any comments, it'd be great to hear from them. You can find me on Twitter. I am BlockchainGMG. So on with the show. Hope you enjoy it. So hello, Andy. How are things in Preston?
Hi, John. Yep. Raining as usual. I think Preston's the wettest place in the UK. It was voted not long ago. So
okay. Well, I think we could have a nice Easter at least. So look forward to that. We're not here to talk about the weather, though. Of course, we're at Blockchain Gaming World, so we're here to talk about blockchain games. And you are you've been around for a long time. If that's not a rude thing to say, can you tell us a bit how you got into kind of blockchain games? I guess it was mainly crypto. Was your kind of entry point?
yeah. Well, I guess a lot of it goes back to probably around about the year 2000 when I was playing EverQuest. Started playing that as my first MMO, and farming rare items and then selling them for real money, and did sort of make a bit of a living from it. And then in 2011, I heard about Bitcoin, and I just knew straight away that well, a lot of people are saying, why is someone going to buy a virtual currency and all this sort of stuff? But I just knew from my experience from gaming, from EVE Online, EverQuest, all that sort of stuff, that people will value these virtual currencies. But anyway, yeah. So I was into Bitcoin quite a bit at the time, and I started mining it, and then also mining Namecoin as well, which was the only other, pretty much the other altcoin at the time. And then 2013. The Namecoin project sort of started dying, so we or myself sort of tried to revive the project, and had some developers working on it. We created the first GUI for Namecoin, so people could buy these decentralized domain names in there.
Should we talk quickly go a little bit into about Namecoin, because it was one of the first. Was it a Bitcoin fork? Was that right?
Yeah, it was the first altcoin pretty much. So, purpose of Namecoin was there was discussions on the forum about adding or creating something called BitDNS, which was for decentralizing domain names basically. And there was sort of a bit of a split in the community of whether they should put this extra data on Bitcoin, so Bitcoin, as well as being this currency, would also be used for this naming service. But there was a split. They didn't want to pollute the chain, but then other people didn't want to create another coin because it would compete with them. And also it would cause problem with mining, because what would happen, and what did happen at the beginning, is people will start mining Bitcoin and then nobody's mining Namecoin, so the difficulty is low on Namecoin, and you can basically, it becomes more profitable to mine Namecoin then. So then what happens, all the miners then move from Bitcoin to Namecoin, and then there's these weird oscillations where it starts taking a long time for the blocks to come through and stuff like that. And that's what happened at the beginning. But before that did happen, Satoshi actually came up with a solution to it for saying there can be two different chains, and what you can do is something called merge mining, where you can use your same miner, using GPUs in those days, and it can mine both Bitcoin and Namecoin simultaneously. So in the end, somebody made like a bounty. I think it was something like 5,000 bitcoins at the time, which was like worth nothing. And want to create Namecoin, and it was like sort of done anonymously, and the guy what made it was anonymous and disappeared as well, just like Satoshi did as well. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's like where Namecoin came from, and it has got that sort of like vibe of like freedom of speech, and all that sort of stuff.
And then Huntercoin was kind of, I guess there's a few people who kind of talk about the first blockchain game, but I guess it has a, seems to me, I've not heard of anything that was before Huntercoin. So
Yeah, in 2013, I came up with the idea that like using sort of Namecoin's technology, you could create like accounts in the blockchain, which would be like human readable, decentralized, and you could use the data what's stored in there for like moves in a game. Like so, for example, with Namecoin, when you store like you can create a name in there, like Andy.bit, you can like attach data to it, like maybe an IP address of a server or something like that for like the hosting or whatever. So I came up with the idea that that data could just be like moves in a game, and we could create like a real fully decentralized MMO sort of thing. The first thing that we came up with was like the Huntercoin experiment. Yeah, with Huntercoin, basically what happens is you create these names in the blockchain which are like entirely unique. You spawn on a map, and then you walk around this map in a provably fair way, which is like all the nodes have consensus to where everybody is on the map, and you collect coins, you kill other people. You could also collect like items in the game, something called the Crown of Fortune, and you actually get the coins which are like similar to Bitcoin in your wallet once you get these coins and take them back to what we call a bank. And in the first like couple of months, it was like really popular. There was like probably like tens of thousands of people playing and making quite a lot of money. I think in its peak, people were making about $10,000 a day just by playing this game. But we did only make it as a sort of like an experiment. We didn't think the game mechanics through or anything like that. It was really just to test how well blockchain could handle like these tens of thousands of players, because it was like a precursor for another game concept which I came up with called Chrono Kings. You can Google that on Bitcoin Talk, and that was the reason for it really. But so we did say that it's only going to be supported for about a year, but it is still running now and still on Poloniex, although it's not doing very, very well at the moment. We haven't had much time to do anything with it, and it does need like a complete overhaul of the game mechanics and things like that. So, but it is still going.
it is interesting what you say, because it was an experiment. I know we've had discussions about kind of whether you'd see it as a failed experiment or quite what a, how can you tell if an experiment, a failed, or maybe a failed experiment is actually a success because it was only an experiment. But it's very interesting, I guess, in the sense of the vision was run at like a decentralized game in which the developers didn't really have much input into it after it went live, and it still runs. And is it a Bitcoin fork, or is it its own kind of blockchain?
Yeah, it's a Namecoin fork, which a Namecoin's fork of Bitcoin. So it does go back all that way, really.
I guess we can see it as something that was, in some ways it was a great success because it worked. In some ways, obviously there were limitations to it, and I know you had a lot of problems with kind of bots and people coming in and kind of sucking up all these hunter coins and selling them off. So what was the kind of progress then from Huntercoin as an experiment that was in many ways successful, but needed some finesse to then come up with what we now have as XAYA, which is a blockchain game kind of platform.
Like obviously after Huntercoin was released, we planned to do the Chrono Kings game, but like things happened in real life, which basically the Huntercoin project was done as a bedroom project as well. It wasn't like no company, there was no ICOs then, we had no funding. I funded it all myself, spent all my time on it. But the end goal was to create this massively multiplayer like online game, like completely running on blockchain. That was what its purpose was, like a precursor for that. So after like say about a year or two or something like that, we started planning for this MMORPG called Chrono Kings, but it got to, I think, I don't know, 2015, and we came up with this like concept which would make the gaming a lot better, which is called game channels. What this sort of allows is it's a bit like Lightning Network on Bitcoin, but it allows players to join these channels and play with each other in a decentralized, like trustless way, but pretty much real time. So then, yeah, a bit later the year after, we thought, should we be building just one MMO, or should we build a platform so other people can build these MMOs? So it got to that point where we decided, yeah, we were going to build this platform, which at the time we called Chimera, and we rebranded that to XAYA.
It's kind of interesting because XAYA is in some ways kind of, I mean, old fashioned is the wrong word, but is very kind of Bitcoin focused because that's kind of where your history is, and very much, I think, kind of aligned to the kind of the kind of 100% decentralized vision of kind of Satoshi back in the day. Whereas, in the meantime, we've kind of seen, obviously, with Ethereum coming along, and then the rise of dapps, decentralized applications, and we kind of see the rest of certainly the games industries come in, and most of them are going in a kind of a different direction to you. I mean, there's some parallels. Technically, I guess something like your game states are kind of like a bit like side chains to some degree. But so there's some technical kind of similarity to where you're going, but actually your kind of vision is actually kind of very different to where most of the blockchain activity at the moment. I mean, what's your kind of thoughts on things like Ethereum and where that kind of market is heading?
The thing with the Ethereum games, I mean, what they're doing is also great as well, but they're mostly focused on just assets. As the sort of like an issue with Ethereum with smart contracts is every node, every block has to calculate the like outcome of a smart contract to see what its state is every block. So due to that, it's not really possible to have really complex games. Like you say, yeah, we're sort of going a different path than most people, and whether it's the right path or not, it's sort of what our vision is and what we're focused on. We really want to be working on these completely decentralized worlds which are like censorship resistant, unstoppable, all that sort of stuff. And that's just a sort of vision that we have. And some people might say that's the wrong way to do it. Some people might say it's best to do the baby steps first. But for the end game of blockchain gaming, the way that we see it is there will be these like decentralized worlds where even if it's just like a social platform, or if it is a competitive game or whatever, that's where we see it heading. I mean, that could be like 10 years off, or maybe it might not be so big. There might only be a few of these worlds, but that is just what we're more focused on.
Yeah, no, I think as you say, there's a broad kind of spectrum of what's been attempted, and I kind of think, as in games, you have games, everything from kind of like idle games on mobile, or Candy Crush Saga, through to kind of EVE Online. There's and broadly, each of those games appeals to a kind of slightly different kind of category or demographic or geographical area. And I kind of, in blockchain games, you would kind of imagine a similar thing to happen. So there will be a CryptoKitties, which is generally appeals to a different audience than a hardcore MMO. And obviously, the whole point of XAYA is the vision that you've kind of come from in terms of the games that you liked, and in terms of your approach to blockchain is very much about that kind of MMO type thing, which no one else is doing. Everyone else is as you rightly say, basically going for NFTs, and then NFT ownership is the reason for having blockchain in these games. So we talk a little bit about you've got a couple of games that are in development on the platform. So do you want to go in and talk? Should we talk about Soccer Manager Elite first?
So Soccer Manager Elite is a company. Soccer Manager is a company what's actually based in my hometown, Preston. It's like a coincidence that I actually got in touch with them, but they've been working on soccer management games for I don't know, 15 years, something like that. And I don't know. I mean, I know that you know a lot about Soccer Manager games, but it's difficult to explain to people like in the USA and things, like what a Soccer Manager game is. But like, as you know, it's the sort of games that people play really, really hardcore. Like 16 hours a day or whatever. They get really, really addicted to it. And before we met these guys, we were actually thinking that a football management game would be good on blockchain, because it's not something that you need like really fast transactions for. I mean, in a normal like football manager game, you might spend like half an hour doing stuff before you actually press like next to go to next, and then compute like all the next matches and things like that. So yeah, they've been in the space like a really long time. They've got like an MMO called Soccer Manager Worlds and some single player games. They've got like over 1 million active users a month. Like, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 million downloads of the games. So yeah, we're working with them to put their next like MMO game on XAYA. It is like more of an exclusive game. So like where in the Soccer Manager Worlds games, they just create new worlds when they have new players, so they're like all in like different alternate realities. Whereas a Soccer Manager Elite game, there's only going to be like 620 teams that people can manage. But one like additional thing to it, well, actually a few, is you actually can be like owners of the club or shareholders of the club. So, for example, if like I want to control, say, Man United, then to be able to do that, I'd have to own like a sufficient amount of shares, create a proposal, like to say I want this player to be manager or me to be manager on this amount of wage, allowed to buy and sell players. You know, you can have like rules and stuff like that, and then the other shareholders have to basically agree, or you've got to have like 51% of the people that take part in the vote agree for that to take effect. So essentially, you're opening a game up to not 620 players, but sort of pretty much an unlimited amount of players. And we think that this will like create like a really different like sort of aspect and angle to manager games. A bit more like realistic and
It definitely adds another layer, doesn't it? So you've kind of got it allows people to kind of choose at what level they want to play at. So I guess some people want to play it, play it actually being the manager, and some people want to play at the more kind of higher level. And it's kind of funny. It's almost like coming to a consensus mechanic about who's going to be the manager and how that kind of management stuff happens.
Yeah, exactly that. It's sort of like true to the heart of blockchain, and all the economy is it's like a all player driven like ecosystem. And like example, with your team, you have like your player wages, and that comes out of your club's balance like every week. And that money that goes out actually then comes back into the economy through ticket sales, sponsorship deals, which are like all automatic, not actual sponsors, but that's a possibility as well for later on. So yeah, it's all like a cyclic economy. It is not going to be like easy to get the economy right. They have just launched their website with beta signups on there, so you can sign up for beta. It's been up there a couple of days. I think something like 1,500 people have signed up for beta so far. So it's it's getting there, and
Is it interesting when you have an existing kind of game with an existing fan base, but then you're taking that and doing something different? I think sometimes people just go, well, we have an MMO and it has an in-game economy already, and we just stick that on the blockchain, which is not really adding anything new. It's kind of interesting with Soccer Manager. You kind of got the core kind of bit is the same, but then you're adding all this other stuff on that you would really kind of need the blockchain to kind of handle. So it is actually adding something new, which is kind of good to see. And then you've got another game very different, Taurion. How?
Yeah, so Taurion is a little bit like Chrono Kings, which is what I was talking about before. So a lot of a lot of it is based totally on that. It's sort of like setting the future after some exodus from Earth when planets blowing up or something like that. We'll be releasing the backstories for that pretty soon, and 3 of these houses or tribes set off. Well, 12 tribes or houses set off from Earth after the Earth was like on its last legs, and 3 of these houses settled on some planets in some sector of the galaxy, and they then like find this other planet which is called Taurion. On their planets, what they've settled on, they're also like not doing very well. So this planet Taurion is like full of natural resources and things like that. So for the gameplay is basically all set on this planet, and it's like in a game genre style, it's probably a mixture of like between a few, say like 4X game, RTS, and like MMORPG. So what you do when you start is you get like a bit of a starter ship or starter vehicle, and you can go around mining and prospecting land. And if you prospect land, you've got a chance of finding like a rare artifact there or something like that. And then you can take these rare artifacts back to a research facility and reverse engineer it, and then you might, if you're lucky, get a blueprint from it, and from that blueprint you can then start manufacturing stuff. So it's like a base building, mining, combat, free factions at war, although also you can have like internal wars between the factions, alliances. It's for actual games. What you could say it's similar to. A lot of the ideas have come from Dune 2, one of like the original RTS games, Eve Online, and Civilization. They're the three main games. What you could say it's similar to, and it's all completely decentralized, all autonomous. All the like back end code is or will be open source. So it's like completely like free player controlled.
It's quite pretty ambitious having comparing yourself to those games. But the thing is, it is interesting because immediately when you look at it, can see where we are with these other kind of blockchain games. It just looks very different. There's not anything out there like that. And the ones that are kind of broadly, there's a few kind of RPGs a bit like that, are basically centralized games that just use kind of cryptocurrencies in terms of their leaderboard reward. So it kind of stands out. But it's pretty early on in that one, though, isn't it? I mean, what kind of schedule are you looking at?
Well, we're hoping next month to have a demo which will. Like a bit of a competition demo, which we should be releasing some information soon. Yeah, but basically, what you do is it's all about like prospecting. So you go around, prospect some land, and you've got a chance there of winning one of three things. One of them is like some big amount of chi. I think it's something like 20,000 chi, which is quite a lot. And then the next prize is something like 500 chi, and the next prize is something like 20 chi.
So should point out cheese is the cryptocurrency that XAYA uses. So.
So it's more of like a bit of a we're just testing for bugs basically. You can't like build any buildings in it yet, and there is a leaderboard on there as well, so you can also get prizes if you get the most kills. But one thing about Taurion as well and Soccer Manager is there are games which don't need to be fast as well. With like you see like a lot of messages saying, well, if you can't do 10,000 transactions per second, then you can't do a game on it. But it all depends on what sort of game it is. Like, for example, Soccer Manager Elite, you don't need, to do 10,000 transactions per second. The matches only play once a week, so as long as you've just done in your week, done the stuff in the week, then you should be fine. And this one is more like a civilization style, so it is like strategy and slow. For when we do need to do games, which we'll be working on a demo soon, which we're releasing some information on for that real-time gameplay. We will be using game channels with that, so hopefully we'll have some information for you soon for that.
Good. So all systems go for XAYA. What do you expect by the end of the year? What would you like to see in terms of kind of where XAYA is?
Well, like everybody, really, we want more active users on our platform than everybody else. It's difficult to predict what is going to happen. I think.
In general, how do you see the kind of blockchain sector going at the moment? Because obviously, end of last year wasn't very good for anyone. Are you a bit more kind of positive now? It seems to be a bit more kind of.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit difficult. I mean, prices are going up as well because sort of Bitcoin's going up. Obviously, Engine went hyperbolic when they got the Samsung news, but yeah, it's difficult. I mean, a lot of people are pumping money in there and creating a lot of gains, but it's difficult to say if any of them are going to be successful or whether even we're going to be successful. But at least like what we're doing is what we like. So, and I think that's probably the same with a lot of people in the space. It's just like what they enjoy doing, and there is definitely momentum there for it to take off, but yeah, it's just got to wait and see, really.
I think you're right. It's definitely the one potentially good thing that happened last year was people who were just in it for the money kind of left because there wasn't any money. So to some degree, the people who are kind of have been going for a few years, really do believe in. I mean, as you point out, different visions of where blockchain games could be, but people have that kind of real belief and that real kind of commitment to it, which I think is important to make a range of different products. So hopefully good. We will see where we end up. Thanks very much for your time, Andy.
No problem. Thank you.
And we'll put all the links to the various websites in the show notes so people can find out about that. Thanks for listening to the podcast, listeners. Don't forget to subscribe. So every week we are deep into the world of blockchain games and talking to the people who are making the games and discussing what the big trends are. So thanks for listening. If you have any comments, you can find me at Twitter at blockchaingmg. If you'd like to leave comments.